Welcome to Promises to Keep. This time we're going to be reading pages 22 through 25. Please make sure you have your book open to page 22 out in front of you. We're going to be reading the text first and then we'll look at the text features. Remember, boys and girls, that this book is written from the perspective or point of view of Sharon Robinson, Jackie Robinson's daughter. So we get the story through her thoughts, her feelings, and her remembrances, or even her research about events in the past. Let's start on page 22. It says 1945, A Changing World. After the Army, Dad worked for a year as a coach at the Houston-Tillotson College in Austin, Texas. He then played baseball in the Negro Leagues for one season, 1945. That was the only league open to an African American ballplayer at the time. Between 1888 and 1947, black ballplayers were restricted to the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leaguers played a unique and exciting style of baseball that entertained millions in small towns and big cities across America. Negro League teams gave us great players such as Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Willie Mays, and Henry "Hank" Aaron. Despite the glory associated with Negro League baseball, it was still part of a discriminatory system. Major League Baseball had an unwritten policy that kept non-white players out of organized baseball. Black ball players were denied the opportunity to play in the major leagues. Salaries were lower in the Negro Leagues, the schedules were less structured, and when the teams traveled south, they were forced to follow Jim Crow laws. Because of its inequities, Dad questioned his future in professional baseball. Although my dad knew that the black press, some liberal sports writers, and a few politicians were fighting for an end to Jim Crow baseball, he had little faith that it would happen in his lifetime. Little did Dad know that change was close, or that he was the prime candidate to break down the racial barrier. The end of World War II signaled a turning point in America in many ways. Segregation was one area that was certain to change. The black veterans returning from World War II were more determined than ever to abolish segregation. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman announced an end to segregation in the U.S. military. Other people were just as interested in desegregating civilian life. Some of them started with sports. Because of its significance to American culture, baseball was the first team sport targeted for change. American baseball, which grew out of British ball and stick games like cricket and rounders, gained in popularity during the Civil War. By the end of the war, baseball was considered America's pastime. It seemed to represent all that was considered good about America: democracy, teamwork, fair play, excellence. It also represented America at its worst: divided, discriminatory, unjust. Let's take a look at the text features on page 22. There's a photograph and the caption says, Satchel Paige left and my father, right, played in the Negro Leagues together. And then on page 23, there's another photograph and the caption says, as a member of the Kansas City Monarchs, my dad played in 47 games, hitting .387 with 14 doubles, 4 triples, and 5 home runs. His strong performance won him a slot as shortstop on the Negro League All-Star team. If you know baseball, that sounds pretty good. Let's turn the page. On page 24, it says, determined to end institutionalized discrimination in baseball, sports writers such as Wendell Smith of the Pittsburgh Courier, Frank A. Young of the Chicago Defender, Art Cohn from the Oakland Tribune, Sam Lacey of the Baltimore Afro-Americans, and Shirley Povich of the Washington Post wrote daily articles on the injustice of segregation within professional sports. They appealed to the baseball commissioner, to the owners of teams, to the ball players themselves, and to the fans who supported the game. The questions these journalists raised went beyond the issue of race and into the economics of the game. They asked, could baseball truly be considered America's pastime when black ball players and white ball players couldn't play on the same field? Could post-World War II teams afford to rebuild and be successful without including the enormous talent pool that existed within the Negro Leagues? Could the business of baseball grow when it was being accused of racism? Could the United States really consider itself a democracy if a portion of its population were denied basic human rights and opportunities simply because of the color of their skin? And this very large photograph on pages 24 and 25 has the caption that says, baseball parks, like the game itself, were segregated. And then on page 25, we have my favorite, a timeline. Let's start with the top box that says 1845 and then work our way all the way down to the bottom box that says 1920. 1845. There are several myths about how and when professional baseball reached the continental United States. However, it is now commonly agreed that in 1845, the Knickerbocker Baseball Club of New York adapted the European games of the past into the game we know today as baseball. 1846. The first recorded game is played on June 19th at Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey, where the New York Knickerbockers lost to the New York Baseball Club. We knew it had to be important in New York, right? 1869. The Cincinnati Red Stockings become the first openly salaried team and are considered the first professional team. That means, cha-ching, the players got paid. 1876. The first major league, the National League, is formed in New York City. 1882. There are now two rival major baseball leagues in existence, the National League and the American Association. Neither league has any black players. 1884. Moses Fleetwood Walker from Ohio becomes the first black major leaguer when his team, the Toledo Blue Stockings of the Northwestern League, joins the American Association. 1887. White players complain that they don't want to play alongside black players. Baseball owners vote not to offer any further major league contracts to black players. 1920. The first national all-black league is formed. This concludes pages 22 through 25. Thank you for reading along. I look forward to seeing you in class. Bye-bye.